There we go. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, everyone. My name is Stephen Horobin. I am the Director of Education for Beyond Education Consulting, and I'm joined this evening by Ismail Marul. He is our resident math competition instructor. Ismail, thank you so much for taking the time tonight to talk to us about the ABCs of the AMC, AIME, and USAMO. It's a lot of acronyms, of course, to keep track of with math competitions. How are you this evening, Ismail?
Thank you for, first of all, having me on this meeting. So I enjoy about talking math competition. So thanks for having me here. So I'm doing all right.
Absolutely.
And I guess we can start with.
Sounds like a plan. So, Ismail, you've been working with math competitions for some time, and we're going to talk a little bit about kind of your background experience with those, of course. I'm wondering, how long have you been coaching students, and kind of what drew you to math competition instruction in general?
Like I've been in math world, I would say, like since my 7th grade as a student, because I had a teacher who was really into kind of math, and he was actually helping the students not just to learn math, but also kind of as a human being. But since then, I really want to be person like him as a 7th grade student. And then I just decide at that moment, so I will be a teacher, math teacher. So
Wow.
and then I just like try my best, whatever I can, to be at least one of like those people. And I just somehow end up getting a like position as a teacher. So I finished my like bachelor degree in teaching math, as well as my master's degree in teaching math as well. So,
Hmm.
and then for the competition background, I guess it's been almost 6 years.
Wow.
So that I'm actually into this. And but last 4 years, mostly just competition focus. But I had another 2 years experience in other school that I actually did some competition as well. But math was always my biggest part, I guess, that I really enjoy doing it. But the last 4 years mostly is competition, but I have more than 6 years experience in that area.
Fantastic. Well, that's always great to hear when we have not only an instructor who currently works with students, but who himself was, of course, inspired by another instructor. I think that's probably the optimal sort of progression from student to teacher and so on. That's wonderful to hear. Let's talk a little bit more about what preparing for a math competition looks like. As you mentioned, you've been focusing on math competitions primarily for the past 4 years or so, and 6 years being involved with math beyond that. So what does effective preparation look like for math competitions? Is it especially different from preparing for something like a test in a class, or how does it kind of work?
Like usually, like school math, like teachers, we usually talk first, explain some rules, and ask like some showing some like examples to students so they know what to do when they see some like question that like those. But with the competition math, it's not that way. We actually give them a like problems, like 10 problems, whatever, and then ask them, challenge themselves, and see how many of those 10 questions that you can actually handle it with using less number of tools. So not really formulas, not really details like concept, just basics. And that is the really difference between the regular math and competition math. It's just kind of testing your problem solving skills with using less tool. That's basically the difference, I would say.
Got it. And when it comes to preparing students for that kind of effort, is it the case where there are materials online, or is there another kind of textbook they're using, or is it maybe more discussion based? Or again, when we're trying to prepare students for math competitions, knowing that they're going to have to maybe develop their own tools or understand things a little bit more differently, again, is there kind of a certain material that you try to use, like something
There,
online or?
there are lots of stuff online or on paper, like books or online platforms that we use. So, and then they like, especially the books that I use, they are actually giving the students to explore something,
Hmm.
drive something, not just memorize something. So there are lots of great resources on available. So we can maybe talk about what are those resources look like. But we do have lots of books, lots of online platforms that we use that is available to everyone, mostly free, but there are some paid version for sure. But there is tons of stuff for students to get prepared for it.
Got it. And let's talk a little bit about, so in this 4 years, naturally, of course, I think you've had plenty of success with your students. Can you talk a little bit about some of the successes that you've had over the past few years with your students in preparing this way?
Like, to be honest, I don't really keep track of those since there is much going on, I'll be honest. But I will just kind of remind like a few of those, maybe just to give like some sort of idea. So like, I guess it was like 3 years ago. So we had a math counts team, which is most, I guess, prestigious competition in the United States. So every state should select 4 students for each like state, so they will compete in the national level. So in our state, we had 4 students as usual, and then 2 of those students were my students. And then that was my kind of first year in that school that I started with. And that was the first time in the school history 2 students from our school actually qualified for the national. And in the past, I don't know, 13, 20 years, whatever happened, they had only 2 students till that moment. But in that year, we had 2 students at the same moment. That was one of the good ones I remember. And just like a couple of weeks ago, maybe 1 or 2 weeks ago, we had another competition that's called University of Houston Math Contest. And then where the students are actually high school students were competing, but some middle school students can take it as well if they really feel they're ready for it. And one of my 8th graders actually took a geometry test, and he got the top place in the United States, even among those high school students who took the test. So that was another one that I remember. And there is like so like some stuff like that. I had some students who actually got a perfect score on AMC and some really great score like over 20s on AMC 10, 12. Not perfect yet, but for the 12, but I will probably see soon. But we have some scores that is over 20 on the AMC 10, 12 as well. And something like those.
Wow. Fantastic. So it sounds like it's the case where you've had students who are progressing to the national level within terms of their competition. We have students who are approaching almost perfection in terms of their performance on some of these competitions. So over just the past 4 years, that sounds like a lot of success. My understanding is that you've actually received an award for your efforts. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. And then the leading contest in the United States is AMC, which is American Mathematics Competition, and Mathematical Association of America like run this competition. I don't know, maybe for 100 years, whatever, maybe like 75 years and stuff like that. And then they every year give some like awards up to 20, 25 teachers, like coaches in nationwide, and based on their like progress, based on their like student successes in those AMC like competitions. And then I never like kind of like apply for these awards in the past. So this year, one of my actually students asked me to kind of nominate me, and then I said, okay, go ahead and do that. And then other people actually nominate me as well. And then when you are nominated by a couple of people at least, they take a look at their like letter, because you just write a letter to nominate someone. And based on those letters and your past like successes in terms of students like numbers or student successes, you are being selected as one of the top I guess coaches in the United States for MC competitions. And then I was given that as well, I guess like 2 months ago. So that was actually a good one. Maybe I can show you at some point in this meeting as well how that looks like.
Absolutely. So I understand that, I believe that was called the Edith May Slith Award. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
Fantastic. So, well, I love that story where you mentioned that it was actually one of your students who reached out to nominate you. It wasn't something that you necessarily sought for yourself, but obviously you're doing such a fantastic job. They felt that they wanted to get you that recognition. So kudos to you, my friend. Very good job. Let's get a little bit closer then to our competition. So I think the next thing we want to start talking about as we march toward the AMC, the AIME, and the USAMO, what other competitions are you currently directly involved with or helping students prepare for?
So I can share my screen maybe to show at least a list of some of them, because there are many, so it's better to maybe kind of show that list.
Absolutely.
So like, yeah, this is the one, like some of the competitions that I actually do almost every year. So as you see, we have some categories like elementary and middle or high school. And some of the competitions are actually for both. So for example, Math Kangaroo, it says grade 1 to 12. So we have every grade level taking this contest. And then we have Math Counts for just middle school students, nothing for high school or elementary. But we have Caltech like competition, which is just for high school. But for high school competition or in general, if you are really good, you can actually take a high school contest, even though you are a middle school student. So in this case, Caltech or Berkeley Math Tournament, those are like high school tests, or AMC 1012, or like HMMT, or Purple Comet, MathCom, MathLeague, .org, whatever. All of them are high school. Some of them has middle school version as well. But even though the test is high school, some middle school students are actually can take as well. So in those cases, so you can go higher, but you cannot go lower if you want to compete. So you can always challenge yourself, even if you are a middle school student. So these are some of the ones that I do almost every year.
Excellent. And so, knowing that AMC is arguably one of the more well-known competitions and arguably one of the more prestigious competitions, what would you say for these other competitions, of which we have nearly a dozen? What's the utility for these? In other words, and obviously you've been teaching students, coaching students for several years. It sounds like, as you just mentioned, you're working with these kinds of competitions almost as often, if not more often, than you are with the AMC sometimes. What is the utility for these? Why should students be concerned with these competitions as well?
Like AMCs are good one, especially questions are written in a way that really challenge students' thinking. That's really nicer. But at the end, that is only one contest where you just sit on your like classroom and take the test. And then if you do well, you get some sort of recognition, and then you may be invited into next level and stuff like that. But that is it. But for the other contests, you do have some competition where you have different levels of achievement. So where you just take a maybe a local one, and then if you do well, you are invited into maybe a regional one. And if you do well on that, then you are invited into the national, where you actually meet with a lot of other great kids from nationwide. In some cases, for example, like we have a test called ARML, American Region like Math Competition, which is I didn't list right here. In that contest, you do see students from all over the world, basically. So, which is really nice way for people to kind of get to know other people and engage, communicate, and kind of like explore new places at the same time, not just taking math tests and doing well. That's all great, but at the same time, you are making some new friends. You are actually exploring different cities by maybe traveling there. So that's really the difference between some of these competition compared to AMCs. So if you do really well on AMCs, let's say you take AMC 10 or 12, you really got a good score, and then you are going to be invited to the next level. But that percent is not really too high. So not all students are going to make there. And then even if you do get AMC, like AIME test, really nice score, and then you will be invited in USA like Math Olympiad, which will be a list of numbers of students, which is not too many. So all others cannot go for there. And then at the end, you can make maybe like International Math Olympiad, which is only 6 students from the United States will take that. So which is, for a limited number of people. So which is why the AMCs are really great, but at the same time, there are some other competition that will have some other advantages as well.
I see. And are all of these competitions that we're seeing here, including the AMC and the others, are these competitions that students will be taking by themselves, or in some cases, are they working on teams, or what's the kind of format difference from possibly competition to competition?
So it's kind of depends on the competition. In most cases, there is an individual part of every contest. And then in most competition, if not all, there is a team version as well. So sometimes you just go a test, for example, like Berkeley Math Tournament. So you go there as a team of 6 people or 5 people, depends on the rules of each contest. And then you take some tests individually on your own, and then you take some tests as a group. So there is different categories for each part. So you take actually both, but most competition has both. So in some rare competition like Math Kangaroo, there is no team part, just
Hmm.
individual, but mostly both.
I see. And it sounds like some of these competitions are held either online or in person. Is that also correct? That there's something of a mix of formats, or are things progressing more toward all in person these days?
So yeah, mostly in person as of like this year, and some of them start already last year, except some exceptional ones. Like we have like Purple Comet that is been online since they started. So
Hmm.
there is a Russian math competition that's also online since they started. So there are some rare ones they've been doing this online, but mostly maybe 90%, maybe over 90%, they are doing in person. But there are like there's a contest called MathCon. You have two levels. The first level is qualifying run where you take online
Hmm.
in your like school or in your like home. And if you do well on that online test, then you'll be invited to the national, which is going to be in person. So, but mostly in person competitions.
Got it. And so for these competitions and of course the AMC, the AIME, et cetera, I think we want to know, when is a student ready to either progress into an actual math competition, or when should a student kind of begin preparing? Is there a good kind of indicator for when a student should be pursuing competition, whether it's something they see in school or something they have as kind of a motivation for themselves? How do we know when a student is going to be a good candidate for math competition?
Like, especially like when the students are actually getting like third, fourth grade, if they're like really doing well compared to the like classmates, it's a good sign they might be trying some like competition to see if they are gonna be really doing well. But that is kind of rare, so people are not really like just deciding when they are really good at in the class and let's try competition.
Hmm.
So usually the parents or some friends are kind of talk about this kind of stuff, and then they just go out and try it. And then when they do well, and then they feel, okay, this is something I like to do, and then they just keep doing this kind of stuff as they go. But if this is like a like fifth, sixth grade or any middle school, I would say these are the times that they should start being some sort of competition or like these kind of events, if they don't want to be too late for this. But it could be any age unless there are some restriction, I would say. But when you never did anything in middle school or elementary, maybe high school is gonna be harder to start, even though you are really doing good in like general in your like math classes. So you might be a bit late for high school students if they never done this before, but that is not to say they shouldn't try.
Hmm.
So there are some other ones, like there are some competition they can still try and see how that looks like. So they might be still continue doing those kind of stuff, even though they just start doing this maybe in high school. But usually I would say middle school's years are good ones, or maybe sixth grade, maybe fifth grade is the best ones,
Hmm.
just to explore those. But whenever they feel they like to try, I will say should be fine as long as they are not really like focused, like result oriented. So when you try this kind of stuff, people are intent to get some really great successes, but that is not going to happen for every individual. So which is why I would say try to enjoy the moment while you are trying anything like this. And if you do well on something, that's perfectly great. But if not, then just live your life and do better on the next time if you can, and try to enjoy and learn by taking this kind of competition.
I see. And certainly it sounds like from your description about the other competitions that we see here, mentioning that there's opportunities to excel in regional competition, national competition, the opportunity to meet other like-minded individuals, to share stories and see cities, and kind of have a real lifestyle built around the study of mathematics. Certainly I could see where that would be just as rewarding as the achievements that we sometimes see students acquire for themselves through AMC and AIM and things like that. So, well, I think that's
That
given
is
us a. Please,
exactly one. Let me add one more thing.
please.
So the questions on almost all competitions are really uniquely written questions. So where you really need to think about the problems and see how
Mm,
they are asking, what they are asking. So it really like kind of tests your skills in problem solving. which is not really plug-in formula types problem. So let's say you try this kind of stuff a few times and you don't really do well, that's okay. But you are actually learning a skill that will help you for your whole life. Like when you see something you never seen, how to manage that, how to really approach that problem, or in general life issues, So you don't really know what's going to happen in your life whenever you see something brand new. So your approach matters. So these kind of problems are kind of like that because you just see something that you've never seen, you have no tools and you don't know what to do. You just think about what tool you have and how to actually approach those problems. This is actually maybe biggest takeaway from this like completion stuff because you really learn problem solving approach. That's my main takeaway, as well as you're enjoying your time with some other people.
Absolutely. And I think that makes a lot of sense to me. Problem solving, I think, is very different from a lot of the approaches that schools take when teaching math. In other words, they're maybe less interested in the skill set as you describe, and they're more interested in the memorization and kind of repetition of a certain formula and things like this. Is that something you would agree with?
That is exactly what I would say, yes.
Fantastic. Well, so it sounds like then there's a lot of utility, a lot of opportunity with math competitions. With all of that kind of covered, let's talk about AMC, AIME, and USAMO. So first and foremost, what are these competitions? How would you explain them to someone who's
So
maybe kind of new to math competitions?
let me change my screen. Maybe that will help us a bit.
Certainly.
So there is a like kind of chart that I have right here. So it says pathway from AMC to like International Math Olympiad. This is a kind of way that people are gonna be selected in the United States. So AMC 8 is just American Math Competitions 8, which is a test with 25 problems. Any students who are 8th grade or below may take this test. So this is kind of introduction to this pathway. And then if you do have like really perfect score, maybe 25 out of 25, that is perfect, but there is nothing from there. So you just take AMC 8 as a practice to get to know the types of questions and how that looks like in the future. So AMC just elementary and middle school like students can take it any year. They can take this every year until they are 8th grade, including 8th grade students. So that is the first like kind of exposure to AMCs. And then after that, even like some middle schoolers, like if they are really ready for it, they can take AMC 10. AMC 10 is the test for any students who are 10th grade or below. So let's say you are 8th grade, you can take AMC 8 and you can take AMC 10 as well. And if you are really ready for it, you can take AMC 12 as well. So AMC 12 is a test for the students who are 12th grade or below. There is an age requirement as well, but AMC like 10, 12, and 8 just represent the maximum like grade level that you can take that each individual test. So let's say you take AMC 10 as a 9th grader, and then you really did well, like about 2.5% on the top, and then you will be invited into the AIME, which is called American Invitational Mathematics Examination. So you can get that invitation by taking either 10 or 12. And if you take 12, you should be like around in the top 5 because that's like a little bit harder than AMC 10. And of those 2.5% approximately or 5% approximately, there are some students like about 6,000 qualified in nationwide. And then these students will take AIME, which is a 3 hours test, and then you should take it for 15 problems. And then if you do really well on this AIME, and then there is a 2 version to continue. One is called USA like JMO, which is your Junior Math Olympiad. This is basically based on your AMC 10 score, and this is basically based on AMC 12 score. So, and AIME score together. So they just look at your AMC 12 and AIME score, and you might be qualified for those 250 students based on these 2 scores. But if you are a student who are actually who took the AMC 10 and qualify for AIME, and if they are looking for these 2 scores to qualify for Junior Math Olympiad, which is kind of a bit like different way of testing or choosing those qualifiers. Of these 2 categories, like let's say you are in one of those 258 qualifiers, that number may change a bit, but 250, just 500 people in the nationwide. And then of those students who do well, like approximately 50 to 60 people will be invited into a summer program that's called like MOP. And those people, those students are actually taking a like summer course or summer like testing preparation, stuff like that. And then of those students who were selected, only 6 people will be chosen to represent the United States in the International Math Olympiad. So as you see, this process started with AMC 8 all the way to International Math Olympiad, but at the end, there is only 6 people will actually do this kind of series of competition. But most people aim for AIME, especially for high school, like students who are applying for colleges. So when you really get AIME qualification, that is a really huge success. So if you can go further than that, that's already something you already did. But if you can just get AIME qualified as a student on any grade level, that is already a big success, to be honest.
Fantastic. So then if I understand, I will go ahead and kind of break this down, make sure that I understand it so that our audience, of course, can kind of keep up as well. So we have the AMC 8 to start off, as you said there. So the AMC, that's the American Math Competition 8, which is for up to and including grade 8 students. So they can take it anytime they feel they're ready. And that, as you said, that doesn't necessarily lead into anything. It's maybe fantastic practice. It's something that we want to go ahead and pursue because it'll kind of get them used to, as you said, the question types that they'll be seeing, the presentation, the kind of preparation that will be necessary. Then to take a look at AMC 10 and AMC 12, and again, respectively, up to and including grade 10 for AMC 10 and up to and including grade 12 for AMC 12. So these 3 tests kind of kick things off ultimately. And if we're able to do very well with either AMC 10 or AMC 12, we then move on to the next step, which is the American Invitational Math Examination. Do I have that acronym correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Excellent. So then we have that as something of a very significant milestone from the sound of it, because as you mentioned, this would be something that would be significant to colleges. It really is quite an achievement. Certainly just looking at the numbers with AMC 8 having 200,000 participants, AMC 10 and 12 respectively having 160,000 participants. To boil that down just to 6,000 qualifiers for the Invitational, the numbers alone tell something of a story there, that we are looking at students who must have a very, very significant edge when it comes to math evaluation, analysis, and just ability for problem solving.
That is correct. One more addition to that,
Please.
those 200 students, like those 200,000 students or 160,000 students are not just random students. They are the students actually really doing well in their school math, and they are trying to challenge themselves with this. And those 160,000 is actually the people who are really doing well, not just regular like students. Of those students who are doing well, and if you are one of those 6,000 qualifiers, approximately, that is a huge like milestone for those students. And then they just use these numbers like qualifiers to add in their like resumes in for their like college applications. So that is sometimes really help them to get into some individual colleges.
Absolutely. And so then knowing that AIME is as significant an accomplishment already, then though we notice that we can go ahead and progress further. If it's something that we're truly passionate about, truly gifted for, we see that on the left, there's 250 qualifiers for the USA Junior Math Olympiad. And then on the right, the USA, I guess, just the Math Olympiad, no junior, there on the right. And it's primarily for the Junior Math Olympiad. I think you mentioned it's the AMC 10 scores combined with AIME that's kind of feeding in that direction for the junior. And then AMC 12 and AIME for the official just Math Olympiad. Is that correct as well?
Yeah, both actually official. Only difference is like this Junior Math Olympiad just coming from based on the 10 score, which is like, usually the younger students compared to 12 students. So which is why it's called junior. But they will actually both has the same like level of like achievement. So only thing is, these kids are younger than these kids.
So then the juniors for younger students, the official Math Olympiad is for the older students who are specifically targeting or finishing the AMC 12. Is that right?
Yeah.
Excellent. And then once again, we have the MOP, and I don't know that I missed it. The MOP, what's that acronym stand for? I know it's a summer
So
program, but
let me actually click this and show you on the website maybe. So this
sure.
is the official website for the Mathematical Association America. Maybe I should make it a bit bigger. So if you click the competition part, so we have like these AMC 8, 10, 12 and stuff like that. And then this is actually the one that I was talking about, the word, but you
Hmm.
know, this is like me, like there's a short video and then this is me in that list.
Hmm.
But let me click the invitational part. So when you click the invitational, so this is what we saw. So, you
Hmm.
know, we have AIME, that is American Invitational Math Exam. And then after that, we have USA Mathematical Olympiad or Junior Mathematical Olympiad. So when you do well on either of those, you will be invited to the summer program that's called, like, let me see if I wanna, yeah, this guy. So it's called Mathematical Olympiad Program. So
Hmm.
that's basically a program where you are like working with like 50 to 60 students just to prepare yourself for the like to be top eight people. And then there is a European Girls Math Olympiad. So of those students actually who are in this program, summer program, and they will actually be qualified for the Girls Math Olympiad as well. So which is
I see.
also another like plus for some of those people if they are girl. But again, this is a mathematical Olympiad program to be selected the top six people for the United States team. But other than those six people, there are some other like awards for people who are going to be in those top 50 people or 60. There are some gold prizes or like silver or some bronze like medals and stuff like that. There are some different like way of like recognizing their achievements, but at the end, yeah, there will be top six from these Math Olympiad program during summer from those junior and Olympiad program.
I see. So if we go back to the breakdown that we had a moment ago, we see the Math Olympiad program, that's the summer program, and then that finally progresses down to the official international Math Olympiad. Is that correct?
Yes.
Excellent. And
So
so then,
they just represent the United States in the International Math Olympiad. Every country has different way of selecting their top six people. So this
hmm,
is how this is done in the United States.
I see. Excellent. So then, as far as pursuing these competitions and preparing for these, it sounds like if we could go back to the previous screen for a
Yeah,
moment, actually, knowing
okay.
that we're distilling down from 160,000 down to 6,000, how soon does preparation begin for specifically AMC 8, 10, or 12? Is it pretty much as soon as you mentioned earlier, grade 5, grade 6? Do we start as early as those grades to prepare for these tests? Should we start in grade 9, for example, if we want to pursue just AMC 10 and 12? Or what are some of the kind of times and dates that parents and families might be unaware of when it comes to starting prep?
So there's not really exact timing to be honest, but like sooner is always better. Like younger is always better than later. So if a student's like kind of start doing this maybe as a sixth grade, that's better than starting at eighth grade. So, but if you start with ninth grade, I would say it's not too bad. But you know, if you're starting with ninth grade students, you probably aim for AIME, nothing more than that. So if you
Hmm.
do get AIME qualifier and you start with a like ninth grade student, so that would be a good success. But you know, people are doing this for years, maybe since like third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade,
Hmm.
whatever. They've been doing this for years, and that's why it's not going to be really easy to get anything higher than AIME level, especially if you are starting in high school year. So, which is why whenever you like start like earlier, that is better, but it's not too late to start either. So it depends on your goals, depends on what you want to achieve. So you can start any like I guess grade level,
I see.
maybe not maybe junior year, but other than that, I would say that should be okay. You just need to kind of decide what you want to achieve.
I see. And we mentioned a couple times that AIME qualification already is going to leave something of an impression when it comes to college applications. Kind of in your own experience and to your own mind, what kind of impression do you think colleges or other organizations get from students who are AIME qualifiers? Do they see them as strong candidates for STEM programs? Do they think that they'll be pursuing other programs on campuses? Or what's kind of the impression that students who qualify for AIME do you think give
So,
colleges?
like, let me show the list one more time to answer your question.
Hmm.
There is a list right here that I shared, Caltech, Berkeley, or Harvard, MIT. There's a Princeton, there's a University of Houston, there's a like Carnegie Mellon. So a lot of colleges, like the best universities, is actually running these competitions themselves, which
Hmm.
means they really care about these kind of stuff. Why they do care about these, especially the good ones? Because the competition question, as I mentioned in the past, they are written in a way that really tests your some skills like approaches, some not just memorization.
Hmm.
SAT, ACT, you just kind of learn some concept and do it. That's kind of something everyone can do it. But these questions are written in a way that you really need to know how to approach them. So, which is why when you get into colleges, if you don't want to really struggle in college, you really need to know how to approach the things that you never seen in the past. So, which is why I feel like the colleges that actually run these competitions, especially really care about the successes or interest because they know that these students are really uh, improve their problem solving skills.
Hmm.
When they know a problem, life like pandemic or some other stuff, that's something we never seen in the past, maybe. And then we saw it, and now people were shocked. They didn't know what to do mostly. And that is a skill that we need to have in every part of our life. So, which is why the competition are actually teaching us using math to kind of to teach some approaches in our every struggles that we come up with. So, which is why that will be a plus for sure.
Hmm.
But I cannot say how important this would be for the college application because it just depends on a lot of other stuff as well, not just the scores on the test. But this is going to be at least one more plus for those students who are actually
Absolutely.
doing these competitions.
And that makes perfect sense. I think we touched on this a little bit earlier, actually going back to your background, talking about how an instructor made such a significant impact on you and kind of pushed you in the direction of math and math competitions. Thinking about the milestone or the achievement of AIME and how that might appear to colleges, as you said, themselves running competitions. Well, they're looking for someone to carry the torch. In other words, we want to go ahead and make sure that this kind of competition, this kind of skill building is something that can be carried on for future generations, future students who attend the school. So I think that makes a great deal of sense. For the students themselves, you mentioned kind of problem solving skills a couple of times. Have you had any sort of experience with students? Kind of you seen them kind of grow and develop with these skills over time as you've worked with them? Have they kind of been able to apply these skills to other areas of their life or other areas of their academics?
Like I had some students who actually make some project in our like the school district in a actually like for the public where there was a park that wasn't really used somehow, and then our students actually come up with a like project including like some of the math background they did have and made a project for the city that we live in. So and then actually the mayor of the city actually give them a really great like resources and support and they actually recognize their success. I don't want to dive into details
Of
because of
course.
the content, but yeah, we did have some such a thing in the past. But that is one part where the students are really getting like better at. And also, when we are doing competition like problems, we as coaches like ask the students to explain instead of we just talking those because sometimes there are many different ways to do a problem and then you never maybe taught before so maybe didn't think that way but some students are actually coming up with another way of doing it and then when start like explain those they are actually getting better at their communication skills as well because
Mhm.
you just go different places and then you explain a question in a different way the way that you like to maybe a little bit differently and stuff like that so you are getting at problem solving for sure and you are actually getting at like better at your like communication skills with other people. That's really important as well, because you are always with other people, not just in your classroom with the same people. So you are just going somewhere and meeting with new people, maybe talking with like the other parents, other students from different schools. So that those are all just plus for the students, not just for the problem solving approach that we were talking for a while.
Absolutely. Well, so then it sounds like to me, as far as some of the other things that students are deriving from both competitions and competition preparation, could be, as you mentioned, the student who used those math skills to actually develop a project that was recognized by the mayor of the city. That's a fantastic story. I wish we could dive into details, but as you said, for the content, we'll go ahead and leave it alone. But beyond that, you talked about communication, and it sounded like you were talking about being something of an independent learner. In other words, there's so much, I think, rigidity when it comes to academics in school because they have a textbook, they have the teacher, and these are wonderful things, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, there's a very sort of prescribed way of learning. Whereas with math competition, we have a bit of flexibility, an opportunity to really figure out, as you said, new ways of tackling a problem. And that's something that students sometimes are very find very difficult to do on their own without a teacher or without a textbook to guide them. So it sounds like being an independent learner would be a fantastic strength to derive from math competition or preparation. Would you agree with that?
I agree, completely agree with that. One example, maybe concrete example, like in our regular math classes, we teach the quadratic formula. We don't really talk about why this formula works or how we actually got this formula in the first place. We just say this is the formula, this is ABCs, you just plug numbers and you get the solution. That's what we usually do in regular math classes. But in competition class, I never do that. So I teach them how to get that formula in the first place. And then students actually required to get that in the first place as well. So they don't need to memorize that formula at all. They just need to know how to get that formula when they need it. That is actually for most other stuff as well, not just the quadratic. So we use some approaches to challenge and find a result that we love to get and we love to remember. So which is why this is really helping us to explore something. Whenever you see something that you never seen, okay, just try something and do something and see where you are actually gonna get with some trial. So getting error is good. So exploring is gonna teach us and get us somewhere that we like to get. So which is really helpful in our competition classes. So which is really
Absolutely.
nice. Yeah, and to have no memorization. We don't like memorization because memorization doesn't really help. The formulas doesn't help. They will fail everywhere, except if you know how to get them in the first place.
Oh, I love that. And I think that the way that you describe preparing and working for math competitions, that's the kind of description I think that most parents and students would love to hear about really everything in school. In other words, having it focused around skills rather than just rote knowledge, but well, one topic at a time, I suppose. We'll go ahead and do math first and maybe we'll rework science next or something like this. But well, Ismail, I want to say it's been fantastic kind of going through this with you. Obviously, math competitions are something I think that we want to talk more about in the future. To start kind of wrapping things up tonight, I guess one question I wanted to ask is what's some advice that you would offer families or students who are considering pursuing these math competitions, whether they be as far as AIME or the USAMO? What's some advice you could offer to students who are thinking about getting involved in this?
Like I would say, just support their students. Like do not expect any result. Don't really push the students to get some perfect scores, some really great successes compared to other students. Don't do this to your students. They just give them support they need, and then whatever they do, just enjoy that. So if you really focus the result, then you are not going to expect to get that immediately. Maybe for most parents, they don't get it. So my suggestion to my students usually try to enjoy the moment while you are doing some sort of practice. So you have a goal for sure to get qualified or do really well on those competition. But at the end, there will be only some individuals will be recognized with those final scores, final result, whatever. So I would say parents just support their kids and provide whatever resource they need if you can, and then just help them to enjoy the moment instead of the result, I would say.
I got it. So enjoy the moment and don't necessarily expect the result. But I think that also translates into, if we're doing the work effectively, if we're sort of doing the things we need to be doing and not worrying about the things that we can't really control necessarily, ultimately we can have the success we want regardless. So, well, fantastic. I think that's great advice. I'm going to go ahead and say at this point, we've covered the AMC, the AIME, and the USAMO. I want to go ahead and open it up to our audience here. If we have any questions or concerns, please go ahead and let us know as we start to wrap up this seminar. Anybody out there have any questions or concerns for Ismail, anything that we can help with this evening, please go ahead and let us know. We've got our chat windows open. If there's anything that we can help with, I know Ismail is more than happy to field some questions. So we'll go ahead and give a few minutes for anyone who'd like to ask to do so. And otherwise, we'll go ahead and start wrapping up here in a moment. And actually, Ismail, if you wouldn't mind just advancing a couple more slides, we'll go ahead and put our contact information up here just in case anybody wants to follow up. So once again, we are Beyond Education Consulting. We are located in Danville, California at the Blackhawk Plaza. We are something of a one-stop shop, I would say, for all things academic and, of course, college consulting related, whether it's math competitions, internships, mentorships, academic tutoring, we kind of do it all. So if you have any questions or concerns for us, please feel free to reach out. But let's go ahead and double check here. If you have any questions or concerns from the chat, it looks like everybody is feeling very well informed. I think, Ismail, we were very thorough this evening. So we'll go ahead then and say thank you to everyone for tuning in, whether you're doing so live currently, or if you are catching this on our YouTube site or other social media pages. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in, and we hope that we can help you in the future. Ismail, thank you again for your time. It's been great speaking with you.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening, and hopefully we'll talk soon.
Okay, bye.
Goodbye.